Brideshead Revisited by Evelyn Waugh. Quite wonderful. Brideshead Revisited is the story of Charles Ryder. It is written in the first person, so we are getting the story from his perspective. And the first thing we know about Charles Ryder is that he's going to Oxford to get his education. And when he gets there, he has a wonderful experience at university as a young man. And that was something that I really quite enjoyed. Perhaps it's a bit of, looking back at my age, remembering what it was like to go to university as a 19-year-old. The new experiences and the meeting the wild people and the wild things. Drinking, quite a lot of it. Naughty behavior, a lot of it. And that is what Charles Ryder gets. He meets this young man, Sebastian, who is from a very wealthy family, and Sebastian is a dandy. He carries around with him at Oxford, he carries around a large stuffed teddy bear with a peculiar name. Aloysius? I think it's Aloysius. And he's very au fait. But he's also quite intellectual. Well, no, he's not intellectual. He's quite a superficial young man.
Hello. Hello. Let's have some champagne.
For Charles, who's not wealthy, he's sort of a middle-class young man, he latches on to Sebastian as this, from a wealthy family, eccentric creature. And he wants to spend time with him. Sebastian, because he drinks too much, as they all seem to do at Oxford, takes a liking to young Charles, perhaps more than in a friendly kind of a way. And they strike up a friendship that dominates Charles for the rest of his life. He always has Sebastian in his heart, even when Sebastian succumbs to the evils of drink, which he does. And this is the key to the opening of the novel, that Charles, he's not a social climber. He's just a young man who is looking for a young man's experience at university. He wants to make friends. He wants to have a good time. He wants to know what's going on in the world. And he meets this Sebastian who very wealthy. I suppose that if you were ever to meet someone from one of those old wealthy families, the money goes way back, someone who's been wealthy for grandparents' times. Charles meets Sebastian, and Sebastian, we learn, is quite Catholic, but he is very tormented by his Catholic feelings because his mother is a really pure, devout Catholic, and he hates his mother. And we learn that he hates her because she is so devout. Like, she's such a good Catholic that is why he hates her, because he can't be as good as she is. And that is why Sebastian's father left her, because he just couldn't stand to be with her anymore. Went to Venice, never wanted even to go back to England, because he just didn't want to get close to that anymore. Because Brideshead Revisited is essentially a very Catholic novel. And Evelyn Waugh was a tormented Catholic. I don't think that's over-exaggerating, that he converted to Catholicism. He really struggled with it, not just spiritually or philosophically, also quite literally, that he wanted to get a divorce so that he get married to another woman. But as a Catholic, he was not allowed to remarry as long as his ex-wife was still living. He actually had, this is real, he had to get an annulment from the Pope. To say that he was a tormented Catholic was not just in, wow, it's hard to abstain from eating meat on Fridays. Charles Ryder is invited to the estate, which is known as Brideshead. He goes there and he meets the family. He meets the mother, and she's, now that I think about it, it's a bit hard to is she really manipulative, or is that what Charles has been told about her? So he perceives her to be manipulative. Because Sebastian, like I said, he's got this animosity towards his mother, tells us that she's plotting. But is that actually true, or is that's what he says, and that's what influences the reader? And so we see her as plotting, but in fact, maybe she's actually quite genuine. Charles and Sebastian, they have this deep young man friendship, which may or may not be physical, depending on how you read the text.
'Tis lovely to see you. How's your poor foot?
Say how do you do to Mr. Ryder.
Sorry, how do you do? Come on. I'll be in the nursery when you're fit to be seen.
We were a somber little party that evening.
Cheeky. And we learn that Sebastian is deeply, deeply conflicted about his Catholic religion, whereas his older brother, Bridie, quite devout. The mother, devout to the point of removing her husband and kind of poisoning her son, Sebastian. There is a sister, Julia, and Julia looks remarkably like Sebastian. And Charles, perhaps through his friendship with Sebastian, falls in love with Julia. How much more should I tell you about this novel? I should tell you that actually the prologue begins with Charles Ryder as a soldier in World War II, and he is leading this troop of young men, soldiers, and they have requisitioned Brideshead as the place where the soldiers will be staying.
Anybody know where we are?
Not officially, sir, but I did hear someone mention the name of the house. It's a place called Brideshead. You can see it from over there.
And so the novel begins in World War II. That's where the title comes from, Brideshead Revisited, that he goes back there as a soldier, and we wonder what has become of him, because then chapter 1, we see him as a 18-year-old man, boy. Sebastian's weakness is that in trying to escape from his mother and in trying to come to grips with his Catholic feelings, he becomes an alcoholic in a very peculiar way. I suppose in a way that if you were to become an alcoholic and you had an unlimited amount of money to play with, that's how he becomes an alcoholic. But he's never free of it. He's always tormented by his Catholic feelings. He ends up, that's all I can say. Charles becomes an artist because he's very talented. The main thing about the novel is that Charles has this relationship to this family, also this love for Julia. But Julia is also a very strict Catholic. She's married, Charles is married, and they come together on a boat, on a steamship, traveling from New York to Britain. They have a affair. They plan to leave their spouses. And even though they are content to make that break with their husband, it's the Catholic religion that causes the deep, deep difficulties. I really enjoyed reading this novel. It's a very deeply Catholic novel about faith and about who you are in relation to your faith. I'm not a religious person, and so I don't think I can enjoy it as much as a religious person, or more specifically a Catholic person, would enjoy this novel, because I think it would strike a lot of chords with someone who is Catholic. What I did love about it, though, something weird, I don't know what it is about me, is that, like, maybe it's Canada or the fact that I love European literature, but like whenever I read about those old European families, especially British families, ancestors and the name and the manor houses, I hate to be too romantic, but there's just something about that old British feeling. It's the opposite of being a redneck. And being a redneck is something I truly hate. In Canada, rednecks abound. And so that very proper old dressing for dinner, fox hunting on a horse with the hounds, cocktails before dinner, after dinner, the gentlemen go off to the library for port and cigars. Like, all of that is just so, wouldn't I just love to have one day of that, you know? It's funny, though, that in those novels, they never really talk about what they ate for breakfast. I guess nobody ever wakes up early. Usually it's the butler comes in with tea, and in bed they answer the letters, and then they have lunch and cocktails. I love literature, and I guess in my soul, I'm really quite a romantic person. So when I read about history and lineage and tradition, it just always does something to me when I read about, like, this fella was going to the club, and at the club he had some port or sherry. It's funny because in my life I've never had a drop of port or sherry, but every time I read it I think to myself, God damn, I'm gonna go to the liquor store and I'm gonna get some port and I'm gonna get some sherry and I'm gonna figure out what these British people are talking about. I guess you can't really love literature and not also be a bit lost in the past. because it is lost. Will never come back. Like all of that epoch, it's all gone, which is why I so much want to go see this film, Saltburn, because it seems to be very closely related to Brideshead Revisited. So Brideshead Revisited, I think quintessentially one of the great British novels. I do have to say though that, you know, not being a religious person, I do get a bit frustrated towards the end, because in the end, that's what it mostly comes down to. If you're a religious person, if somebody who struggles with their religion, this could probably be a great novel for you. And if you're a non-religious person, as I am, it might be good, but you might also get the same frustration that I felt towards the end. Right, let's leave it there. This is the book raffle, where you will be able to win this book and this book of my writing if you support my channel on Patreon for $5 per month. And if you want to get in on this, please, there's a link below. Patreon, Grant Loves Books, that's me. I'm Grant and I love books. And this is the name of my YouTube channel and the name of my Patreon page. $5 Canadian, only Canadian, not American, not that expensive money, just that, you know, Monopoly money, Canada money. $5 per video. You could get into this so that you could win this, and I'll mail that to you with a big kiss. All right, who wins? Davood. Thank you, Davood. Davood has been a longtime supporter of the channel, and he has his own YouTube channel where he discusses very philosophical, intellectual ideas. And I'll put a link below to Davood's YouTube channel. He's got a really great channel, which is a bit over my head, and like he's talking about philosophy. And so Davood, thank you for supporting Grant Loves Books. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. Please support the channel. Subscribing to the channel and liking the video really helps me a lot. You don't have to give any money, but if you could, it would be well spent, because I'm a guy who loves books. You know, I'm not spending it on what's something really ridiculous to spend your money on. Cigars. What a fucking stupid thing to spend your money on. I'm spending my money on books, as you can see. Thank you very much for watching. This is Grant Loves Books. Take care.